Growing up, I lived in a small remote town in Alaska. Basically, everyone knows everyone in such small towns. Rather, I should say our parents know just about everyone. During the summer, we have swarms of people coming in for construction jobs from all over the state, as well as the United States. These jobs start in early spring, maybe around mid-April, and then last until late autumn, probably around the end of October before the snow starts to fall. Anyway, it was still early fall time when this happened. I remember this because in our small town during the summer, the sun never sets, and it stays bright. I was around probably 14 and about 3 of us were staying at our best friend's house for the weekend. One of our favorite things to do when we stayed at his house was wait until his parents fell asleep and sneak out of the house. We wouldn't do anything crazy. We just wanted to be outside at night because that's when the town was alive. This time though, the 4 of us decided to go for a short walk to the market for pizza, pretzels, and energy drinks, and then return back to the house and just hang out right outside. There is a boat harbor now across from his house, but at the time it was just a lagoon and a bunch of extremely tall grass. So tall that you can lay down and not be seen. I remember the setting so vividly. It was just beginning to be autumn, maybe late July or early August. It was pitch black outside with only a few streetlights. It was normal for people to ride by the house while we were outside. It was also normal for intoxicated people to walk by as well and not bother us. Everything was normal when we left the small market. We were all talking and having fun as kids would do. Usually, we don't worry about a thing on the way home, but for some odd reason, one of us decided to turn around to look behind us. That's when we noticed him. Someone in all black. We couldn't even see his face. We didn't see anyone outside of the market when we arrived or even left. There was no one on the street either. All of a sudden, this person was just behind us. With pizza, pretzels, snacks, and energy drinks in our hands, we all looked at each other and collectively decided to walk faster. My friend turned his head around to make sure we weren't just being paranoid, but the man decided to walk faster as well. This is when we all decided it would be best to just start sprinting towards the lagoon with the tall grass. All of us made it to the lagoon and in each different spots dropped and laid down. Unfortunately for me, I was closest to the road. The road had a long pipeline that had water go through it during the day. As I was on my back, I slowly turned my head to the left. Through the blades of grass, I saw this man in all black just behind the pipeline looking for us. My heart is pounding, and I slowly turn my head to the right and see one of my friends a few yards away laying down as well. I turn towards the pipeline again, and this man is just hunched over the pipeline, smoking a cigarette with the most terrifying smile I've ever seen, waiting for us to pop out again. As soon as he finishes his cigarette, I notice he's about to climb over the pipeline to start looking for us. My heart begins to race again, but right when he starts to put a leg over the pipeline, you can see headlights in the distance coming our way. He gathers his leg back, turns around, and walks away. We all just laid there even as he was gone, even as the car drove by. A few minutes later, we all pop our heads up from the tall grass, wondering what the hell had just happened. We sprinted across the street back to the house and never walked in the dark again. If we wanted to sneak out and make a store run, we made sure it was still light outside. We always stayed right outside the house after that. This happened in a town about an hour away from Sacramento. My friend was house sitting for a family that her family was friends with from church. She was to house sit in the country just outside of town for a week. They had animals like cats, rabbits, a donkey, and horses. The family also had dogs too. The family took the dogs with them. My friend was in charge of feeding the animals and watching the place. She didn't have to get the mail daily because they had this metal lockbox style mailbox down their long driveway. They didn't have any neighbors for miles, just fields of alfalfa, cattle, and corn. So I guess the lockbox could have been for safety. Towards the end of the week, she asked if I wanted to spend the night and keep her company, and I thought it sounded fun. I had moved out of my aunts and uncles and gotten my own apartment, so I told her I'd pick her up on the way there after I got off of work. We got there around 9:30 p.m., grabbing dinner on the way. We went into the barn first thing and fed the animals. It was late for their dinner, and they made their hunger known with their animal noises. We made sure they had water, then went inside. The house was this big ranch-style house. Single story, the living room was to the left as you walked into the home. There was a long hallway directly to the right of the entrance that led to where the bathroom and bedrooms were. Straight ahead was a dining area, and to the left of that was the kitchen entrance and a patio door. They did not have an open floor plan. In the kitchen on the opposite side was also a long hall that had several doors. My friend explained that the wife ran a daycare center outside of the house. These rooms were play areas for the kids she took care of. We didn't bother going over there because we had no interest. We watched some TV, ate our leftovers, and talked about people we knew. As it got late, she turned on the house alarm and said she didn't like sleeping in other people's beds, so she had been sleeping on the couch and offered it to me. She would sleep on one of the two huge recliners that reclined so far back it was almost flat. The chairs were really comfortable, so I just said I'd take the chair. I went and laid back in a chair with my blanket. We turned off the TV and were talking for 20 minutes in the dark when the motion sensor floodlights started shining through the window, lighting up the room. Now, I really have no idea why people in the country think it's okay not to have curtains or blinds, because to me that's insane. We both got quiet and Amanda says, maybe it was one of the cats. Then we start hearing gravel crunch like a person walking across gravel in the parking area outside. My chair was closest to the window, and I slid carefully down to the floor, clutching the stupid blanket the whole time. The floodlight timed out and my friend slid to the floor too. We lay on our stomachs in the dark, not knowing what to do for a minute, when we heard a loud bang and all of a sudden the house alarm started blaring and the floodlights turned on again. It was so loud we covered our ears and I started to panic. I began crawling towards the keypad for the security because I've seen the commercials. There's a button you push and a person responds to you in case of an emergency, or at least sends the police. I thought so anyway. Then all of a sudden the main screen says, patio 1 of 2 open. Amanda starts to cry a little and hits the call assistance button on the pad and nothing happens. There's no assistance. I asked her where the phone was and she said there's a phone in the kitchen and one in the parents' room down the hall. So our choices are to go to the kitchen past the windows and next to one of the patio doors, or to go down the hall to the parents' room and use the phone there. I asked her where the other patio was and she said it was in the daycare part of the house. It was an easy decision. We go inside the parents' room and it's pitch black. I ask her where's the phone and she says, I think we have to turn on a light. I really didn't want to turn on a light but didn't have a choice. I have a flashlight and I didn't bring my cell because I had limited minutes. She turned on the light and we started looking around the room. Not only did these people not have curtains on any window, they didn't even have closet doors. We see a golf club leaning against the wall by the bed. We figure if we hit someone with it, it's going to leave a mark. She grabbed it and we continued our search for the phone. Looking at the obvious places, we find a cordless phone stand minus the actual phone. The alarm is still raging, we have a light on, and the person who opened the patio door is bound to notice. She asks, should we use the locate phone buttons? I look at her and respond, yeah, if you want some strange guy coming in here with it and asking us if we were looking for something. I'm getting mad that I'm scared and in this situation. Standing there knowing that we have to go to the kitchen, a house alarm stops. It gets country quiet. If you've lived in the country, you know what I'm talking about. There isn't another golf club for me to grab, so I make her go out first, flipping every light on and keeping the doors we pass in the hall closed. We double check the security panel and it still says patio open. Hit the call button and it still doesn't work. I told her we had to check the patio near the kitchen and I grabbed a big knife that wasn't even close to being sharp from the kitchen. We check the patio door near the kitchen and it's locked. We turn on all the lights and grab the phone and dial 911. The phone is a cordless phone and it's one of the old ones with a cord attached to a wall. My friend is on the phone with the dispatcher telling her what happened and I hear a whistle coming from outside the kitchen window. The thing people don't think about is while you have the reflection of the inside on the window, people on the outside have a clear view of you unless you press your face against the window. I hear the whistle again. It sounds like someone trying to get someone else's attention kind of whistle, but I don't see anything outside and I'm not pressing my face to the window to see if I'm the person they're whistling for. My friend is still talking to the dispatcher and is crying and saying she doesn't have the address to the house. She hands me the phone and I say, hello. The dispatcher lady, who sounds weirdly annoyed, tells me she needs an address to send police to. I ask that she trace the call and she says something like, your house sitting and you don't even know where you're at? Scared, angry, and overwhelmed, I handed the phone back to Amanda and started looking for something with an address in the kitchen. I'm looking at the junk drawer on the counter on the refrigerator, fully keeping an eye down the hall that has the daycare rooms, knowing that on the other side of one of those doors is a patio door that was opened. Amanda tells the lady that she doesn't pick up the mail because of their lockbox and then a few seconds later removes the phone from her ear and stares at me with a blank face. I ask her if they're tracing the call because I cannot find anything with an address. Amanda says, look, she said, I hope the police find you in time, and hung up the phone. I was so scared and angry at the same time. We knew that there were people outside. We knew that the patio door to the daycare area was opened. We did not know what to do. We stood in the kitchen silent for what seemed like forever, but was probably 1 minute. I picked up the phone and dialed 411. I told Amanda that they would have the number to the police department. As calmly as I could, I explained what was happening to us. I included the 911 dispatcher and said we really needed the phone number of the town's police department. Then we heard a huge metal bang outside the kitchen window by the patio door. It sounded like someone dropped something metal and heavy. Amanda started crying and I couldn't hold in my fear anymore and started crying too. Whoever was outside was going to break open that patio door. The 411 operators said they were connecting us and would stay on the line with us after getting angry at the 911 dispatcher on our behalf. A police officer answered the phone and the 411 operators started explaining what was happening to the police. Then they were asked to disconnect once we had an established connection. The police asked a few questions and we heard the whistle again outside and floodlights all around the house turned on again. I was too scared to look outside and we had never turned on the patio light because we had to walk across the patio window to get to the switch. We told the policeman on the phone about the whistle and he said that there should be several policemen showing up shortly and to stay on the phone. We were outside the town limits and knew it might take a little while. Having an officer on the phone made me feel a little better, but I was still really scared. He told us that the police arrived and were coming up the drive. The policeman said to put down the phone and open the door, so I did. What I saw was a police pickup truck with spotlights flashing into the pastures that ran along both sides of the drive. Two officers with shotguns walking slowly beside the truck as it came up the long drive. 4 officers approached the house asking us our names. One went to the phone and said they were here and hung up the phone. They ordered us to stay in the dining room and began searching the house. One by one they returned. The last one came back in through the patio door by the kitchen. He said he searched the barn and mentioned the horses also looked spooked. They told us they didn't find anyone and that the daycare patio was not locked. There was, however, a broom handle in the track to prevent it from being opened too far. I looked at the patio door that the officer entered in and saw there was not a broom handle in that one, then felt dumb because he just walked through it. They lectured Amanda about not knowing the address of the house she was supposed to be responsible for. After finishing statements, they said they'd stick around and look more and if we wanted to leave we could. They said they could lock the bottom lock but not activate the alarm and we were cool with that. We got out of there so fast. We got into my car and went to her mom's. Mentally exhausted, we fell asleep and I went to my office job the next morning. She said she really didn't want to go back to the house, but she had to feed the animals their breakfast. Her mom told her to take her sisters and she did. That afternoon she called me at work. She was really nervous and began telling me that when they went into the house there were footprints on the carpet. Also, she said that when they went into the barn to feed and water the animals in the morning, someone had tied all the rabbits' legs together in their hutches. They had 10 rabbits. Amanda then continues to say there was a note with the word "lucky" scribbled on the back of a pizza coupon she thought came from the refrigerator door because the flyer was missing a coupon. It took a while for them to untie the rabbits' legs and Amanda asked her mom to find someone else from their church to finish the house sitting. She wasn't going back. She told the officer what she came back to, and no one was ever caught, and the police never called either of us to update us. So last night, I was at a classmate's house working on a group project we have due tomorrow. I live in an apartment in the town where our university is located and my classmate lives at his parents' house, which is in the foothills just outside of town. In order to get to the house, you have to drive along a relatively secluded and narrow 2-lane road for about 5 to 6 miles. We started working on the project at about 6 p.m. and I ended up hanging around for a while after we had finished our work. I left his house pretty late at about 11 and started down the road back towards town. I didn't realize how tough it would be to navigate the road at night. There were no streetlights and the road was unkept and riddled with potholes. On top of this, I had no cell service, so I had to drive very slowly to make sure I didn't blow out one of my tires since I had used my spare a couple of weeks back. I figured I was about 3 miles from the house when I rounded a tight corner and saw a pickup truck with a camper shell parked diagonally across the road. The manner in which it was parked completely impeded my path and I couldn't drive around it because there was a gully on both sides of the road. The only way for me to go at this point was backward, where there was a pull-off that I could use to turn my car around. At first I couldn't see inside the cab, but when I turned on my high beams I saw that there was a man slouched over in the driver's seat, his head resting against the steering wheel as if he had been knocked out after a bad accident. I immediately sensed something was wrong. The way his car had just coincidentally come to rest in a position that totally blocked the road was a big red flag for me. I had heard stories of people playing dead in the road as a way to lure unsuspecting people out of their cars so they could rob them. I elected to go back to my classmate's house and explain what was going on. I threw the car into reverse and kept my eyes darting back and forth between my rear view and the truck. I looked and saw that I was almost to the pull-off where I could turn around. When I looked back, my heart skipped about 5 beats. The man who had been slouched over in the driver's seat was now walking at my car at a hurried pace, while a few other men jumped out of the camper shell and started moving towards me as well. I panicked and accelerated backwards into the pull-off, which messed up the undercarriage of my car pretty badly. As I put it into drive, the guy was already at my passenger side door, tugging on the handle, which, thank the Lord, was locked. I only caught a brief glimpse of him, but his face appeared to be scabbed and leathery. I sped away and didn't slow down at all until I reached the house, constantly checking my rear view to see if they were following. Thankfully, they didn't tail me, and when I reached the house, I explained what had happened to my classmate and we called the cops. I was grateful that my buddy's parents were kind enough to let me stay the night. They didn't find anyone on the road matching the description, but I filed an incident report, and they told me they would be on the lookout for similar vehicles and suspicious activity. I'm still so shook up over it. I keep getting the same adrenaline rush I got when I saw the guy charging me whenever I think about it.